And we are live. Man, shout out to the people. There's some already in the comments. Adiz 411 must be delayed because of weather. Look, man, we're gonna try and be in here just for a little bit. We have plans to maybe go a little bit longer with the live stream, but wanted to be able to get in here, give a little bit of our second, half of the season outlook.
Yeah.
Talk about what Cade, Cunningham, and all of this unnecessary hate. Talk about the RJ Hampton deal, what it means for the Pistons, and so much more. Definitely out. We're also gonna bring in Steve as well. Definitely want to make sure he can get in here and give us his take on the RJ Hampton deal, the second half of the season, and everything else. But brother, we got to talk to Rod Beard today.
We did. And you mentioned threw some Hollywood jokes in there as well, so you had to do that with Rod. But no, it is awesome, man. I'm excited. We're going out with a couple guys this Friday, actually. And Rod will be included. Mike will be there, so I'm excited. It's going to be a lot of fun. So,
yes, sir.
Did you see the before we started the Brandon Miller thing,
bro? What?
Yeah, I think that was kind of overblown. It was blowing up so much. It's almost like he did it. Like he was. And if you read the article, which I did, or one of the articles there was, it mentioned how he was lied to initially about why he needed the gun. So, I mean, I think it was kind of overblown. It's unfortunate because he's a top 3-4 projected pick, and for something like that to come out, and technically there's nothing they can charge him with. I mean, it's unfortunate, but
it's really unfortunate.
I'm curious to see how that kind of, unfolds moving forward.
That's going to be interesting.
Still balling though.
It's going to be an interesting thing to see. Especially if it was, if he had nothing to do with any aspect of what went down. It's just like, why?
I think the guy, Darius Miles, I believe his name is, who committed the actual crime itself. He said or he admitted that he texted Brandon Miller and said he needed a gun for self-defense or something like that. So he got him a gun, and then so he's lied. It was just a whole thing, man. I don't know.
Jeez.
Still gonna go top 4, top 3.
So. But goodness gracious, what else in the news of basketball, in the world of basketball news, man? This Cade Cunningham hate.
Oh, that's ridiculous. I just stayed off of it, man. I just get because it's just I don't even want to entertain it. I don't know.
It makes no sense. And Rod and I, we discussed it as well. And I don't know what people are missing as it relates to Cade Cunningham and what I believe he is, what other people believe, and what some of the other outside media are able to, or bloggers or influencers or whatever, what they're able to see as it relates to Cade Cunningham or not. Right. Rod Beard, he said this 2 years ago. He said this in the summer as well, and he said it today. People just aren't watching basketball. It's easier for them to be able to kind of look at the box scores, be able to come up with some reason why he must be just stat padding when he's doing well because they're not winning. So, hey, it's okay to rank him in a redraft 3rd, which you can make some arguments. But Franz Wagner ahead of him? Rod did the same thing. The same exact thing. And I don't understand it anymore, man.
Yeah.
No more. It's ridiculous, man. So it's like with this is why we started the platform of the Cade Zone and all this, to be able to pull out all of the different numbers, metrics, and be able to speak to some of the, analysis and some of the takes that we have. It's not like we're just sitting up here just looking at the game. We're making takes on the game. I believe personally that Cade Cunningham put up an all-star worthy numbers. I know it wasn't the longevity that we wanted, 12 games. What are you going to do about it? But I do believe that when he gets back, he is going to be an all-star caliber player.
Dude, you just look at how many different ways he affects the game. That's the first thing you see with Cade, and that's what I don't entertain. I mean, I see those mock drafts, and me and Adam, I think we discussed it as well a little bit on the show, but it's one of those things where if you're from Detroit and you watch the Pistons, they haven't been great, so it's mostly locally. You know how good Cade is. There's not really too many questions. At least most people do. So, I mean, Cade is a tremendous player, man. And for him to be ranked 3rd, the only thing that came to mind would have to be injuries. Maybe because he hasn't been, he's hurt a little bit, at the beginning of last season, and now he's missed this entire season. Okay, that's the only thing you got. If we're talking skill, pound for pound, what he can do to affect the game
and that's
at a high level.
Perspective as well.
if you're in the category of Michael Jordan for what you did in the month of March as a rookie, and you're like, it's got to be. I mean, come on. I don't know. That's why I don't really sit there and entertain it, because it's like I don't get the opinion. I don't. But But that's what those lists do. They get people to engage, and it's their belief.
And what better world? Rod talked about this last week. How just well versed Pistons Twitter is. He went into grand detail to just talk about the fact that when he was on the beat, before he really, really, really got to know a lot of us personally, he could list 10 people from Pistons Twitter, and he knew that these other beat writers from other cities, they couldn't do the same, and that they had beef and such with their aspects or their components of fans that cover the game as well, man. It's just, I don't know.
I need to hear Rod.
You should have saw me this morning, dog. When we recorded, it's gonna come out at 1:00.
Because you got your shirt on too, man.
Yeah, I got the Cade Crusader shirt on, man. Y'all make sure y'all tap in at 1 p.m. Rod and I went in. He was very balanced, very, very reserved, and very, very disturbed by this whole aspect of Cade Cunningham, bro. You should have seen his face when I told him who was number 2. Same thing you did. Same thing you did, man.
And I'm not saying he's a bad player. I just
it's not about it. But come
on,
bro.
I mean, come on, Like you watch them both.
Man, look, we got some people we got to shout out as well. I see Dwayne Pierce in the comments. Katie A, what up? He said, good morning, Dwayne Pierce. PD Mac, my guys. What up, though, PD Mac? Money Train James. He said basketball is back tomorrow.
Definitely. True. By the way, basketball back with RJ Hampton. Now as a Piston.
Let's talk about that, man. I want to be able to get your thoughts on it. As soon as I saw the deal go down, the first thing I thought of was athleticism, and I want to be able to bring Steve in on this portion as well.
Yeah.
Steve, what's up, man? What up, though, bro?
What's up, Steve?
Not much, man. What's up with you guys?
Bro, it's good to see you. It's good to see you this early, man. I know that there's a time zone difference, but
it's been a minute for me, man.
Yeah, I want to be able to get you a little bit more involved on this. I know that behind the scenes we're trying to work on some things too. But definitely, I wanted to be able to get you involved. Start off with Jeff on this whole RJ Hampton stuff, man. And I already know that you probably have a take that's gonna be spicy. So I can't wait to get to it. But Jeff, RJ Hampton, man, what are you making of it?
I mean, I like it. Again, it's risk-free. Like, I think that's the big thing to take away. And when you stink, when you go out and acquire guys that don't or can't have the same role on their respective teams and they can on yours, they can have an increased role, then go get them. Like James Wiseman, for example. I'm excited to see what he does now getting the opportunity. And RJ Hampton now played a little bit, but for really the entirety of his career hasn't gotten an opportunity, a lot of runway. So he's going to get that. He signed for the remainder of the season. If he shows something, great. If he doesn't, it really doesn't mean anything. So I would much rather watch RJ Hampton, I'm going to be honest with you, than Corey Joseph, if we're being completely honest. So those are my thoughts on it. Honestly, I like it.
You know what? I don't even know if you need to watch the pod at 1 because Rod said literally the same exact thing. He brought up the whole component of Corey Joseph, the fans' complaints. We literally have somebody that can kind of get those minutes,
right?
And then people still find ways to some degree to complain. Now, look, do I believe that there could be some adequate reason as to why RJ Hampton might not be a player worth taking that chance? Maybe, but I don't know, man. To sit here and to parse it to those degrees that I've seen some fans, they go and they act like this is the tipping scale for how we're going to judge Troy Weaver, and it's now this right. RJ Hampton deal. It's like the same people who are upset at him taking a flyer on RJ Hampton were also the same people who got upset when he cut Jalen Hands. It was
it's like, because you know why? It's because people go off high school highlights and they, because Jalen Hands, and I get it, especially right now where the Pistons are, man. And Steve, I want your thoughts on it, so I'll let you go. But there's no risk. I have no issue with former first round picks getting an opportunity. If it doesn't work out, it's risk free.
So anybody that's like, why are we still taking leftovers? Like, he got cut by the Magic. If the Magic don't want him, why should the Pistons want him? Number one, I think this is an example of basketball politics. What do I mean, basketball politics? Well, let me give you an example. RJ Hampton was originally drafted by Denver the season after they made it to the Western Conference Finals. He's a guard. They do not have time nor space to implement a rookie guard into their rotation. That's why he was traded as a rookie. Very rare that anybody gets traded as a rookie. I mean, I think they really got him to try and get somebody like Aaron Gordon, who they used to trade. They used RJ Hampton to trade for Aaron Gordon. So
here,
that's
bro.
one of the things why I think he was there. I mean, Detroit, if you remember, another rookie guard that got traded way back when, Chauncey Billups got traded in his rookie year, just to think about something like that for that same reason, because Rick Pitino is an idiot who didn't want to coach in the NBA and didn't want to coach NBA players. So sometimes these things happen. Then he goes to Orlando. Well, in Orlando, that rest of that rookie season, he's still a rookie. It's just up and down. Next year, he played over 3 times as many minutes as Jalen Suggs. And Jalen Suggs was the number 5 overall pick. He played over 3 times as many minutes as him, shot it way better from 3. In my opinion, I think he outplayed Jalen Suggs as well in that regard. But Jalen Suggs is the number 5 overall pick. The team is obviously going to invest in him. Also, Markelle Fultz only played 360 minutes that same season, the second year of RJ Hampton. So RJ had him beat there as well, and shot 35% from 3 in that same season. So you can say, yeah, he outplayed Fultz.
Bro, it's preaching right now.
More available than Fultz. But again, they already put the money into Fultz. He's already like their reclamation project. And then as soon as he got healthy this year, they've invested more time into Fultz for whatever reason. I personally think that's a mistake, but that's their prerogative. And then Cole Anthony is still there. They drafted him. He's the one that should get the most minutes at guard. He's played well. He's shot it better as he's progressed in his NBA season. He's somebody who will attack the basket. Gary Harris is the only adult in the room there. Shout out Sparty. They paid him as well. They're paying him $13 million a year, so you're not going to play RJ Hampton over him. And then they still have Terrence Ross, who they inexplicably never get rid of. I don't know why Terrence Ross has been there
so
long, but these are all of the guys that were in front of RJ. And again, it's more of the politics of either you were drafted higher, you have a bigger contract, so that RJ would have to really, really, really be a top player in order for them to push him down. And he was just, fighting up an uphill battle from then. Also, shout out to Dope too. It's IMDOPLOL on Twitter. He put out this tweet yesterday saying, according to Basketball Reference, RJ Hampton is shooting 68% at the rim this season, 52% from 3 to 10 feet, 44% from 10 to 16 feet, and 34% from the three-point line. Oh, and he's shooting 46.7% from the corners on more attempts than he ever has this season. So
shout out PD, man.
Well. He's trending upward too. And if you looked at his defense this year, his defense really stood out. It really took another step. So it's odd to me that they released him and they pushed him down for somebody like Fultz, who still doesn't have a three-point shot, who's still a big injury risk. But their loss, I think it's still a nice addition. RJ Hampton is somebody who will push the pace, who's gotten better on defense, is an immediate defensive upgrade like we've wanted. Probably more of a shooting guard than a point guard, but can play both of them. I believe he had 158 assists to 87 turnovers last year, which is a very good, assist to turnover ratio. And that's in 1,402 minutes. So everything's trending up for him. It's an odd thing that the Magic let him go. But again, it's more of the we drafted guys ahead of you, or we signed guys with big contracts, so we don't have space for you anymore. It's a good pickup, in my opinion.
Yo, Steve with the facts. I like that. And then the drink at the end. Steve, can you do that one more time, but just put the pinky up? Right there it is. I love it. Hey man, shout out to 3M, Mr. Wright. He said, "What up, though, beautiful people? Thanks for giving me something to listen to at work." Hey man, shout out to him. Man. He's one of the regulars, awesome. Definitely. And shout out to hey, I guess we got Brazil Piston fans in here. That's what's up. I like that, man. I like that.
Now that is sweet.
I like that a lot. I'm just looking through some of these comments. Money Train James said Cole and Fultz is not it. He agrees. Steve, you got the people on your side, man. And we try to tell people Steve is very, very well studied, very, very well versed, and just really good at what he does.
Yeah,
really, really, really good at what he does. Like that, some of the information you just provided, I hadn't even heard some of that stuff. I didn't know necessarily what type of player we're getting, because generally when you hear a guy's getting his team doesn't want him and he's still a young player, you think he's broken. There is no reclamation unless he was an absolute number 1, number 2, number 3 draft pick, and you just got to kind of take a flyer on him. But what you're telling me is that he just hasn't had the right situations, the right opportunities.
Yeah, not only that, again, the numbers, and when you look at the film this season, everything is trending upwards. So it's good. It's just, again, they just ran out of space, and they've invested so much in so many guards. since I do the draft stuff too, everybody that previews Orlando's draft, there's the running joke of like, they can't draft any more guards. Like, well, they don't have any spots for them anymore.
Well, speaking of draft, I do want to ask you, Steve, because me and Brandon kind of talked about it earlier, the Brandon Miller situation. Because I've been hooked on Brandon Miller just probably since like early December. First time I tuned into him, I'm like, yeah, this dude's a freshman. He needs to be in a Pistons uniform. And now the stuff comes out. And I know you're very into the draft, you know your stuff, and I wanted you to kind of break down that situation, your thoughts on it, and maybe just Brandon overall as a prospect. I know you've probably already talked about it, but I just want to hear it for the first time.
Well, I mean, legally now he can be charged as either an accessory to manslaughter or aiding and abetting at the very minimum. So for right now, like, he's not going to be on my next draft board until this situation is clear from the legal side of things. Like, nobody should be able to touch him. I know the story is like he didn't know and whatnot, but that's still legally, he is still responsible for providing the weapon that led to a young woman losing her life. Also, Alabama's response and Coach Nate Oates' response is like, well, I can't control what's outside of the building, has been absolutely disgusting, in my opinion. So we might also see the NCAA step in and suspend the program. I'm from New Mexico. I'm wearing my New Mexico stuff. New Mexico State's program got suspended this season. Like, they stopped all basketball operations because there was a shooting on when UNM, New Mexico, played and MSU, and there were other things going on with the program that they stepped in and said, no more, we stop. If this same thing doesn't happen in Alabama, I'll be pretty disgusted and pretty shocked because, again, somebody lost their life and it's over the absolute stupidest reason of she didn't want to talk to this guy. Like, all these people have to be held accountable. Even if you didn't know, again, this led to somebody losing their life. So yeah, no more Brandon Miller talk for me until the legal side is resolved.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's going to be an interesting thing. And it's, things always change when you get more of the facts.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I that's why I appreciate Steve, just not just in the basketball of things, but just the heart, the people that we try to work with on this Woodward Pistons platform. Like Troy Weaver, man, we're hoping that people have hearts, have consciences, have characters. You know, even Sean Murphy. These are guys that they care about things, whether we see everything eye to eye. We've had the whole disagreements. Steve will tell y'all we've had whole arguments, disagreements. We've gone back on things on from racial issues to religious issues to try and make sure, we understand and know all the facts. We try to rightfully divide. We try to make sure that we have all of the different perspectives from even different racial backgrounds, man. And it's been one of the coolest things that we've been able to have on this platform. And so when Steve does speak, I know that he's coming from a place of not just surface talk, but from a place of trying to be honest to his heart and making sure that the right stuff is out there for us. That's one of the most important things he does for us. Like I told you all, shout out Adam, man. Adam Baydoon. Shout out to Morning Woodward Show. But Jeff has missed everything behind the scenes. He does a lot. Steve is probably our conscionable sinner. And I appreciate that, man. That was some good information, actually. It really is. But yeah, I'm seeing some comments here. People are saying give us number 1 or number 2 in the draft. I don't know what they would pick. KDA, who would you pick if you got that number 1 or number 2? If you got 3 or 4 and you fell outside of that, who would you pick? I think that's more the question. Obviously, we know who number 1, number 2 is, but who are you guys taking if it is 3, 4, 5? Is Brandon Miller still on your draft board at all, or does the current situation kind of deter you until we get some things figured out with this situation? So it's going to be interesting to see. With the second half outlook, though, for the Pistons, I wanted to be able to get you guys' outtake on how many wins are they going to have, but what are you looking to see? What are you hoping to see from this team down the stretch? What are you hoping? Like, is there some key players? Are there any key moments that you're hoping to have? What exactly does the second half of the season need to be for you? And Steve, I'll start with you, man. You look like you're ready. You take it away, Steve.
Anybody over the age of 25, go ice your knees, go to the trainer room. Like, you're all good. We're gonna put you on the injury report. Thank you for your service, but your off season starts now. Because again, a lot of these guys that came in, Wiseman,
right.
RJ, Stanley Moody's been lightening up more and doing some things. I know they have Jared Rhoden. I don't know if they've really played him in the main lineup. I would like for the team to use this as the time to get a look at these other guys, and especially RJ and James Wiseman. Like, they really just need to feature them. RJ has a contract year right now, so this offseason he's up for a new contract extension. So they really should get an idea of if this is somebody we want to keep even in our second unit. And then again, James Wiseman just needs as much reps as possible to know exactly what he is. Really, is nobody knows what his go-to offensive skill set is. I think that's the number one thing. And then reps in like pick and roll ball or pick and roll defense against ball handlers and stuff like that. So yeah, I know Bojan there, Burks, you probably want to play, but like, we were already bad. We're not making the play and push. So thank you for your services, big fella. Bojan, you're making 20 million. So we need you to be a team guy and let some other development come into play. Burks as well, you're a team guy. You're paying 10 million. We need you to, let the development track so we know who else can fill out in this roster. That would be my thing for me.
Yeah, no, I think Steve nailed it. Honestly, for the most part, it's really about player development. I think, overall with this roster, with RJ, like Steve mentioned, or James Wiseman, your job, and we talked about this before the season, like the season was always about figuring out who's staying, who's going, like kind of getting a clearer picture of this roster, and getting more playing time to those guys will help. But at the same time, you also want that, competitive aspect where, like, I'm going to play vets. You got to earn the right to play. Like that's the part of it too, is much like for RJ, if he's out playing, obviously Corey Joseph, he's going to play over him. Killian Hayes, if he's not playing well, I'm cool with Killian figuring out his slump. But now that more people need playing time, I want to see guys compete. And really, the overall big picture is, looking at the end of the season, you need a clearer picture of who's staying and who's going, because you have assets. You're going to obviously draft hopefully, a top 2, top 3 pick, and you're going to have money. Like, there's going to be some big moves this offseason. Troy knows that. And this period is just kind of figure out, all right, who are we keeping around?
Yep. And that's kind of it. With like we all know, the cap space, with the draft capital. At the start of this season, I said selfishly, I wanted the Pistons to be able to get into that play-in and just, be all ready to move forward, to spend their cap space and things of that nature and just augment around what they had. Clearly, Troy Weaver, based on the injuries that happened, it kind of forced Troy Weaver to see things a little bit differently.
Yeah.
I believe if this team started off the way we thought that they could be, I do believe that they're at least threatening for a play-in spot. Maybe just falling short because some of the players that we thought were going to pan out, some of the guys that didn't get injured, they didn't really pan out the way we had hoped. Killian Hayes hit the season after putting up a good offseason, a good preseason, and just absolutely fell off a cliff. What are you going to do? And that's after
it's been a roller coaster.
Good end of last season. Yeah, and it's been an absolute roller coaster. So it's like with those guys, if you cannot depend on what was supposed to be the core, the original foundation, which was Sadiq Bey, Killian Hayes, Isaiah Stewart to a great degree,
right?
Then what's gonna, where does that leave you at in your rebuild? So if that first class was ready to go, I believe that team is ready to accelerate the rebuild. This was always a 4 to 5 year window, not a 3-year rebuild, not a 2-year rebuild, but they could have helped to accelerate things. When you get Cade, Jalen, and Jaden as your next 3 first-round picks, that is absolute fuel on the fire to your rebuild. That put them in a position now to, especially when you hit on guys like Bojan and Burks, if you wind up hitting on like a Wiseman and RJ Hampton, it puts you in the same position that the Cleveland Cavaliers were in before they started wheeling and dealing some of their young parts and pieces to try and take the steps forward. When I remember when they first got Jared Allen, they were in a position to do that because of the foundation that they had previously laid. When people thought, oh, they just suck. Then all of a sudden they got the young capital and the cap space to be able to make the moves they needed to get Jared Allen. Then all of a sudden we know that they were able to also, once they got in a couple more draft picks, right, go out there and then trade for Donovan Mitchell.
My favorite was drafting Colin Sexton.
There you go.
And then drafting Darius Garland.
There you
and
go.
Being like, all right, we're going to figure it out. Who's ever better? All right, we're trading away Colin Sexton.
Yeah, because there's a plan. Like, I get it. If you're trying to get as many wins as possible, then no, you don't have the ability to sit back and actually properly assess what's going on with the players that you're drafting and the players that you're signing.
Right.
To see what Alec Burks has become, to just be able to take that flyer on him, that's like awesome. We really wanted Jalen Duren. We got Jalen Duren plus a couple other pieces. And Kevin Knox wound up being what part of the throw-in to get James Wiseman here. So if he winds up working out, wow, these are things to absolutely be ecstatic about. And like the Phoenix Suns, they did the same thing. We saw Devin Booker publicly and openly complaining about, bro, I ain't even made the playoffs yet. I'm just trying to get there. And we know that he was a top-notch young player. We know that he and DeAndre Ayton were talented. We know these things, but not until they went out when they had the foundation laid. Then adding a piece like Chris Paul, then you can go out there and do things like that. Then you can go out there and add a KD. Why? Because your foundation is set. You can gut everything else around your foundation, which would be like what, a Cade, a Jalen, and a Jaden, and for the purposes of going out there and adding or landing high-priced players that can make an instant difference towards winning or losing, like a Chris Paul did for Phoenix Suns.
Yeah,
that's and Steve, I wanted to get your take on it as well. Anything that I said that needs to be cleaned up, but. I don't know, man. That's just kind of how I'm seeing it, is that this thing was always a 4 or 5 year window. If they could accelerate it, cool. But if not, this year was always about assessment, development, who's going to be here next year when this team is going to have a little bit more responsibility and pressure placed on it.
Yeah, here's where I'll pull out a few receipts, though. I remember I got roasted. On the Woodward Pistons preseason thing because I said that it was going to be like a 25-win season, even with Cade. And I used the KD year 2, and everybody roasted me, saying, no, they're going to push for the play-in because we got Bojan now. And well, here we are now without Cade and maybe reach 20 wins. So, the only thing that I'm like back and forth on is if Weaver really did tell Gores this is a 5-year plan, only because if you look at the rebuilds that we've kind of looked elsewhere, like Cleveland, it was in year 4 that they made that major leap from 19 wins to something like 44. The Grizzlies were only bad for 2 seasons in their rebuild. Boston, honestly, was only bad for the 1 season. After that, they won 40 games, and then they won more games ever since after that, too. OKC, it took 3 years, something like that. They got KD, and then they got Russ, and then they took off the next season in the 3rd season. So it's just hard for me to buy into it being a 5-year plan, only because the history tells us there's not many GMs that make it to year 5 when you haven't won 40 games yet. And the Cleveland one that a lot of people point to, that's an anomaly. I don't remember the stats on it, but I remember everybody making a big deal that they're the first team since I don't know, the early 90s, mid 80s, something like that went from 19 wins to 40. So it just sucks because it does put a lot of pressure on this one off season and this one upcoming season. But we shall see, because the trades, you never know about trades. One of the silver linings of my personal disappointment in the trade deadline was because it's such a bad free agent class, the trade assets that Detroit have could look a lot better, because do you want to pay Dylan Brooks $30 million a year? Do you want to pay Kyrie whatever he's gonna command, or do you want to trade for Bojan for a year and a half because that contract's really good, or do you want to pay Burks for $10 million for 1 year rather than overpay whatever random guy is out there that's underneath the top guys in this free agent class? So that's something that could honestly swing the team a lot.
Yeah, and I agree with a lot of the takes, with a lot of what you're saying there. I think this year a lot deals with health and just how big of an impact we believe that Cade could make. We know that the trophy we're going to continue to hold it for Cade is just that post All-Star break run, where the wins were affected, the numbers were affected, the double team rate was up, and stars around the league were stating the impact that Cade was having for the squad. And the reason I do believe that this is shorter than a 5-year rebuild, but it's a 5-year window of a 5-year restoration. I believe the team is going to be winning by next year. I think they're going to be a decidedly looking much better team. It's just the first year people kind of convolute with Casey because he was brought in to win, and they went to the playoffs that first year. That next year, it was almost like a throwaway year. Hey, we're going to roll the dice here. And everything that could realistically be wrong for them kind of was wrong. Some people say, hey, they made the wrong pick. They dropped in that draft. It's not like they had the number 5 pick like they were slotted to have. They dropped to number 7. And if there was no foundation since that time, if there was no no Cade, no Jalen, no Jaden. If he just rested on his laurels like previous GMs, I would be 100% in lockstep with you. What you described is what previous GMs do. And with Cleveland, you're right. When I first saw their uptake, I was like, what the heck? You know what I mean? Freaking Cleveland. Because who gets lucky in the draft the way they did? Who this, that, did? Who even, they just broke all the rules. But it's like, it's almost kind of like that's what I see Troy doing. I see him kind of breaking the rules. And you're right. This offseason is one where if it doesn't work out, bro, if it doesn't work out, you're right. There's a lot of pressure. But I believe it's because he set it up that way. You know, if he lucked into it, you know, like Joe Dumars with the number 2 draft pick. That was the one where there was pressure to get the pick right, but it wasn't by design necessarily. It wasn't like, oh, yeah, this is where I want to be. This is kind of based on some of the things they've talked about, at least where they say they want to be. But you are right. You are right when you say this. They're putting a lot of pressure on themselves because the rebuild, if they don't get this pivotal offseason right, how far does this thing stretch out?
Yeah.
How far? Because that is the other component. And it's a fair thing to bring up. It's very fair to talk about. I've pondered it. And that's why I believe it's important that we've seen some of the next level ability that we have from Cade, Jaden, and Jalen. Because if not, Steve, what if it was just on that first draft class that they called the core 4? Jeff, what if it was on that first draft class?
No, and I think you both made a lot of great points, like honestly, and I agree with a lot of what you guys are saying. I think 5 years, obviously, I never thought it was a 5-year rebuild. That would be. I agree with Steve there. Like you see teams turning around quicker now. Detroit, being a smaller market. And also it was a complete teardown of the roster itself too. Like during those last years with Blake, I mean, you essentially tried to build around Drummond and it didn't work out. So I got to give Troy at least credit there. You talk about his first draft class all you want, about how he should have taken Tyrese Halliburton, but I think you nailed it earlier with, if you follow it up with, you got Cade, obviously, and people will say, well, that's a no-brainer pick. Okay, well, you could have, people mess up number 1 overall pick. So
that was a no-brainer.
He nailed that one. We could say that. If you followed up with Ivy and Jalen Duren, I mean, the guy's acquiring talent. And I think taking risks like he's been doing, or doing risk-free things like he's been doing, like RJ Hampton or James Wiseman, like at this point, just let the man cook.
Yeah.
And they're judging him before, like next season, I agree, this offseason is super important. I mean, there's, number one, you got to have a lot more clarity with the roster itself, but you're going to have money. You're going to have a top draft pick like that. I am excited for the summer. It's going to be exciting because I think after that, you'd be allowed to kind of judge all you want. But until then, it's like people are judging him off the simplest stuff. It's like he hasn't fleeced the general managers consistently. Yeah. It doesn't really make sense.
Because I brought this up with Rod as well. The Pistons have shown the very great ability to be able to buy a mid-league playoff team. They can buy an 8th seed team. They've shown that. They've bought that and they got swept the last 3 times they did that. Tom Gores wanted a winner. They went out and bought it and they got a winner. I want to make the playoffs. That was the mandate when SVG came in. They made the playoffs. They brought in Dwayne Casey. He said they want to make the playoffs. They made the playoffs. There was just no longevity to it. And that's why I was like, you know what? Tom Gores throughout his ownership has continued, at least with this Pistons ownership, to get a little bit more wise as it relates to letting the basketball minds handle the basketball of it all.
Right.
And it brings me to this aspect of Troy Weaver, because I see people in the comments are saying, hey, talk about the coach. And I think it's important here. Troy Weaver, and I just did an article on this on Woodward Sports, he's effectively put the blame on himself. And I think it's because he knows that he has his hands on the wheel and he's the one that gets to control what goes on. So he's stating that he has not equipped Casey with a roster that he can judge by wins and losses, and that what they're hoping to get out of Casey, they're getting that right now. Now, as it relates to some of the other aspects like play designs and rotations, I don't know if Troy Weaver is specifically asking him for that, because most GMs are not going to overstep that boundary. They will set or lay like an idea. Hey, this is kind of the style we want to play. These are the players that fit that style. Can you coach this style?
The vision.
And we'll give you the vision. We'll let you do the execution and whatnot. And so the real thing is this. We know that with players, Casey is shown to be a good coach. Whether you think he's great or not, that's up for debate. There's some people who believe he's shown some great propensities. There's a lot of people who believe the game has just passed him by. And so from that standpoint, I believe you can have a conversation on, Do you believe that who he is as a coach, as an X's and O's guy, is it for today's game? I believe that's what you can have. Rotations. I get it. People could be upset about certain rotations. I think it's more about what the roster makeup currently is and less about who Troy Weaver is. I mean, about Dwayne Casey. But I do agree. And Jeff has helped me see some of the light in this as well. Some of the play design, some of the schemes, they're just, I don't think that they really fit to what we have. I don't think it fits to the style of basketball that would best utilize our young players, their athleticism and things of that nature. And sitting in that room and talking with these guys sometimes, being in the press conferences, the takeaway I do get from Casey is that they're trying, is that they are working on the weaknesses that we see. They are trying to get these things through, and they come to the table with Killian Hayes, and they're just like, look, at this point, it's up here. Y'all know the boy can play. We picked him because he could play. The mental aspect of it is on him. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, it's kind of a hotbed or a tough spot for me with Casey, simply because he hasn't been, in my opinion, given the necessary resources to go out there and be judged in wins and losses. But I want you guys' takes on it as well. Start some type of dialogue or conversation about it, because I'm curious. I started with you last time, Steve, but Jeff, what do you how are you feeling about Coach Casey?
I mean, it's tough. I think you guys know this. I mean, with sports, it's much easier to get a new head coach than to replace an entire roster. So, but this season, there's been fair criticisms of Dwayne Casey. I will admit that, even though people call me a Dwayne Casey defender all the time on the morning show, I'm not simply just defending Dwayne to defend him. I defend him because, number one, people wanted him fired mid-season. Like, that's going to fix anything. Just to give someone a new, just to put a new voice in there. The best thing for these players right now is just consistency. You have consistency at the head coaching position. You have Dwayne, who's proven, like, if you look at some of the players, I think I've loved the development you've seen. I think for other players like Sadiq Bey, who was just recently traded, I think people would say, well, no, he didn't develop. Well, he's traded now. So I don't believe even Troy thought he could develop anyway.
And he didn't want to pay him.
I think some of the criticisms are unfair. I agree with some of them. I'm somewhere in the middle. I do believe a move will be made, but until right now, what does that do for you? I mean, when are we going to start holding the players accountable? I think that, not more than the head coach always, but there's got to be a point in time where
I saw Steve's eyes light up when you said that. And then he shook his head.
Okay, go on, Steve.
No, keep going.
No, because I'm pretty much, I want to hear what Steve has to say.
Yeah. I love it. Mute. You're unmuted. I want to hear this, bro. You there, Steve?
Well,
what's your
Stevie?
take?
I know he was about to.
He was about to go in.
He was about to go in on me, but I don't know. I could see both sides. I really can. I don't know if Steve was really going to agree or disagree. You said he was.
No, he was agreeing. He was agreeing.
Okay.
I was interested in what he was going to say, because it is a touchy thing, and I know that Steve is going to have the numbers.
Yeah,
he's going to have the trends. He's going to have things that can even more so. Like, I know we look at stuff. Steve is the absolute nerd of it all, though. So it's an interesting thing. I think he had to go for school. He's probably one of the hardest working individuals.
Yeah, he grinds.
Yeah, he's even working on a PhD right now, y'all. Like, straight up. I'm just peering for real. I don't even know if he even wants that out there, but Steve is he's official, man. Teacher, working on his PhD, and he's one of the most knowledgeable draft people that I've come across.
True.
So definitely. But yeah, I with Coach Casey, I did want to ask, as it relates to the playbook of things, do you believe that the playbook needs to be updated, or do you believe that it's a notion or a nature of what we have on our roster right now? That as the roster gets better, that what he's trying to do will mesh better?
We've talked about this too. Like, you put it perfectly. With what the roster is and the skill set these players have, the scheme or the vision from Dwayne's point of view just doesn't align. Like, you can see it, but also you're watching guys hit wide open threes, and missing wide open, layups at times, like whatever the little mistakes that players make. And you're sitting there going, well, how is that his fault at that time? So the scheme is an issue. We can admit that, but obviously players, that's why I keep repeating it, because I think players, they just assume immediately everything has to do with the head coach. Every mistake in a game has to do with the head coach. That's not the case. Simply, it isn't. But with Dwayne, there's got to be a change, but I don't want to sit here and dissect it like that matters. I don't care what plays they're running. They can go out there and just have a blank page and go play pickup basketball. As long as I'm seeing something from the players, I'm okay. Like, as long as these guys are getting better, Dwayne's not going to be here. He's the second oldest coach in the NBA. Like, he doesn't have another 5 years left. And I'm assuming Troy will make a move. I can't speak for him, nor do I have any information. But at this point, I think the writing's kind of already on the wall, if you're picking up what I'm putting down.
Yeah, so effectively, new voice, new direction. Somebody who's probably born in this aspect of basketball. You know, somebody whose voice you think can probably resonate in a way with these guys that they're used to. You know, and I do believe that Troy Weaver is, as a GM, one of those guys whose voice is probably more evenly resonates with the players, because we know he was on the scene with those guys. But I get it, man. I see some of these new coaches come in with these new strategies and ways that they're able to even ride the hot hands and such. They kind of bend the rules a little bit as coaches.
Well, the league's just getting younger, like at the coaching position, and they're going after former players. Like, that's kind of where the NBA's been trending. I mean, my dream scenario would be Chauncey Billups, and that was when he was available. But that's where the league's trending. Dwayne, he kind of, knows that. He's self-aware enough. I don't think he wants to coach till he's, for another 5-10 years. Like I said, he's done. Like, pretty soon, I would assume. Maybe he transitions into another role. Like, I don't know. Right. I mean, but at the same time, man, I mean, we got a lot of candidates, a lot of assistants out there that are going to be good head coaches. Like, it happens all the time.
Yeah, and PD
got to find them.
Yeah, PD Mac said players hold some blame as well, like Sadiq ignoring a play being called and doing his own thing. That's what fans aren't seeing. And it's true. You know, Rob Beard talked about it earlier, and you guys are going to see this on the 1 o'clock pod, that there's a lot. When I joined the beat, my first year, COVID came and I had to do everything through Zoom. And a lot of it is just tough to really pick up on how these players are actually feeling, how the coaches are feeling, kind of the vibe. You can see them. Like, you see, the players walking to the press conference room. You see the coaches and all of that. And you get a sense that, this matters. You get a real sense that Casey is really, 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 really trying. Right. And with a Sadiq Bey and with guys like Killian Hayes, he's been very open and very honest with those guys. I feel like when I look back on it now, I missed the signs of Sadiq Bey being traded. They made that decision, bro, in the offseason. We knew that they had to make a decision on Sadiq Bey. But when they brought in Bojan Bogdanovic and then started giving Alec Burks minutes, and when you just look at kind of the way of things with this roster makeup, the writing was just on the wall. It was on the wall. And Casey said that they tried to put Sadiq Bey in every position possible. Every position possible to get the best out of him, whether that was coming off the bench, whether that was getting his usage rate up, that was in the starting lineup, and they say, here, put the ball in your hands. They played him with the starters coming off the bench. They played him with just the bench. They did everything in their power, and if it just doesn't work, it just doesn't work. Now, do I believe this? That Troy Weaver knows that if it's not going to work, he can just go and buy a player that can? Well, that's what he did, and that's the component of it that I'm talking about. He has an opportunity this offseason to do the same. And if these players, it's a two-edged sword. Let me put it this way, because some people say, well, if a player's not listening to a coach, does that mean that the voice is dying? Does that mean that the voice is falling on ears that are just like, hey, what you're calling is not necessarily what it's going to be? Look, you're supposed to always follow what your coach says to a T. That's what you're supposed to do. And let the living and the dying, let that rest with your coach, not on you as a player, because then it makes the assessment that much more difficult. Like, run the play so at least we understand what the deal is. Hey, I mean, shout out to Sadiq, he hit the shot. You know what I mean? He hit the shot. But Steve, welcome back, bro. I know you've heard some of what we were saying. I'm sure you had some stuff you wanted to talk about as well. But definitely, man, what's good, brother?
Yeah, sorry for the technical difficulties there. So in terms of like the players needing to be held accountable, The only thing I will say is defense, defense, defense. If there's anything about it, there are a few guys on this team who do not care about defense. I recently did a State of the Pistons address on Resball Pod with Data Driven Piston Fan, who does a lot of great mathematical and statistical work, uses a lot of stuff from B-Ball Index, and he and I talked about that in particular. Bojan and Ivy are really two of the worst defenders in the league. They're both in like the 11th percentile or below for defensive points per 100 possessions, for defensive effective field goal percentage, and for the turnover percentages. So 11th percentile or below. There is no one number that can quantify like what you do on defense and like hustle and determination. But when all the numbers like that are bad, and both guys have 120 and 122 defensive rating, that screams like, what in the world are you doing? And if you think I'm just like a hater for Ivy and Bojan, go follow Motor City Hoops. Bryce Simon, look at all of his film breakdowns. He will constantly call them out because they are the two, and the reason why so many opposing guards and wings get into the paint so easily, because they either don't have the athleticism like Bojan. And Bojan, too, if you track his Utah numbers, his defensive numbers went down those last 2 seasons he was in. He's getting older, so that's part of it, too. But as a draft guy, I've tracked Ivy for 3 years now, and honestly, a lot of the defensive stuff has gotten worse, which is not a good sign. He does have the athleticism and the tools to turn it around. We will yet to see if that is the case, but yeah, like that kind of stuff, too, is like, if you're that bad of a defender and then the rest of your teammates can be like average at best, and Jalen Duren is a rookie, you can't expect rookies to be good on defense, right? And you got Beef Stew and Killian, that's about your only competent defenders. And then on offense too, like who is supposed to get a bucket outside of Jaden and Bojan, right? Like there's only so much you can put on a coach when these kinds of things are there.
Yeah.
No, and I agree with it. And that's effectively what Troy Weaver was stating, is that, look, for what we're doing right now, Casey is the best person for it. I don't know what that means for the future. I don't know what that means for X's and O's. I know he was brought here to win. He was not brought here to be a part of a rebuild. That's not why Casey was here. But they found something out as it relates to who he is as a person to these players. And Troy Weaver spoke on that like ad nauseum. So I do want to a large degree respect that. It's like if Troy Weaver is saying this man is doing his job to a T in terms of what we're asking him to do, then this is like, okay, if we're going to trust Troy Weaver, then yeah. And that's why I'm glad you brought some of that stuff up. I think that there are reasons behind it. I believe that on a better team with better defensive players and a where that is the air that people are breathing, I believe that Jaden Ivey shows a little bit differently. I do. I don't think that the numbers are as dreadful. With Andre Drummond, people, they did the same thing. And it was clear that when you look at the basketball things, it was like, well, it's just an Olay to the rim. Like he's guarding 2 and 3 people every single play. So we could say he's a bad defender, but in reality, there were circumstances surrounding what made him a bad defender, because we saw kind of average to probably not so good defenders become or look like better defenders when they joined Pistons teams of old, where, the whole squad was effectively going out there saying, hey, look, we can still play 4-on-5 defense, and it's going to look like we got 8 people out here on defense. So it's like, I want to see Ivy continue to get better. I know that defense was going to be his hardest transition. I thought that he was going to, I said this before he got drafted, when he got drafted, after he got drafted, that NBA spacing for Ivy was going to be a trampoline. He was going to run through right around people and jump and dunk. And that's what we see him able to do. Whether he needs to obviously get better with the turnover and whatnot, but the defense was the scary part for me. I knew he didn't really have to learn to play make this year, so I'm grateful. I'm glad. That's like a cherry on top. But the defense was a concern. That's what we talked about. Jeff asked it all off season. What was he asked to do? We talked about the fact that the measurables are there, but we got into, when we broke down some of these players like Benedict Mathurin, like Jabari Smith, and other guys that kind of, we liked. We noticed these guys were kind of two-way guys. They could play both ways aggressively. Not just both ways, but I mean, they could get up in your jersey and not really foul you. And so, yeah, I want to see Ivy improve on that defense, man. Yeah. But you're right. You're right. The defense is not good, and you can't coach up things that people just don't have, including desire to a degree.
Yeah, and I mean, again, I don't want this just to be like, oh, I'm railing on Ivy, but when you look at his tracking numbers and you look at the defensive dashboard on NBA.com/stats on shots that are less than 6 feet from the rim, opponents are shooting 71.1% when guarded by Ivy. That is inexcusable for anybody.
Yeah, 6'4" with a 6'10" wingspan, man. Like, yeah,
No,
and as athletic as he is, I mean,
that's fair.
It's not like he's not capable.
No, I agree. It's true and it's fair. And it's cool with Ivy. We're able to, and Duran as rookies, high level rookies, we're able to look at them and say, "Hey, get better." With Killian and Sadiq, it's getting to the point. Obviously Sadiq, they made a decision. We don't believe he's going to be the player we want to pay. Same thing they did with the guy that they traded him for, right? Luke Kennard out, Sadiq Bey in. That's a draft pick that they were going to just let go. Most GMs, when they come in to a new situation, just wash it. He was like, you know what? I can find a way to turn Sadiq Bey and Luke Kennard into draft picks that I can see. Are they going to bring any potential? And if they don't work, guess what? I can turn them into further draft picks like James Wiseman to see, will I get any potential? It's not as if Killian Hayes is the pick that was ours and it fell. And it was not a very, very, very good draft. It wasn't the best draft. And so it's like, okay. And the other two drafts where you could not miss, he didn't miss, So it's going to be interesting, but they just don't have enough talent right now. I believe that they can buy it quickly. They've shown that in the past. They can go out there and wheel and deal. SVG showed it. We were sitting here looking at this man bringing in a couple new players that could contribute right away. And ultimately, they just didn't have the depth in their first time, and they were matched up against King James. Injuries derailed them and whatnot. But if they can do that, what if they were adding Blake Griffin, right, to the foundation that they currently have? I'm not saying that Blake Griffin was the right trade, but imagine adding him to a better team than what they added him to. That was kind of clogged up with no point guard on the roster. No real point guard on the roster, man. Like, think about that. If he came to this squad right now, say, take his knee out the mattress, no leg injuries or anything, and you plop him on a team with a healthy Cade, a healthy Ivy, a healthy Duran, I don't know, man. That's a much better situation and an outlook than what they had prior. And so it's like, yeah, this roster makeup is not what you want it to be if you're talking about winning. But as it relates to what they're talking about doing moving forward, I don't know. I see a solid foundation that if they go out there and they make the right signings, they spend this money the right way, it could be accelerated. Right now, how many NBA guys would you say they have? Like solid, if his team is contending, you could see them on the squad. Would you? And I know it's hard to do it with rookies, but the assumption is that Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duran are going to be two of those guys. The assumption is that Cade Cunningham is going to be one of those guys. And if Bojan and Alex are here, the assumption is that they're going to be those guys. So that's 6 rotation players. Pretty small, which means they need a lot of size. But I wanted to be able to get you guys' perspective on it before we kind of shut down. Who do you believe is currently on this roster that is NBA talent, like NBA contention level?
Well, unfortunately, I'll let Steve take this one because unfortunately, I gotta head out now because unfortunately, man,
getting here.
Dude,
Jeff has a hike, bro,
and I gotta do some stuff.
Pass the buck, Jeff. Pass the buck,
dude. But Steve, you take this. Appreciate you. Nice seeing you, Steve.
Yeah,
and thank you everyone for watching.
It's the everything.
If I had to bet my life or bet like serious money on it, I would say 2. I would say 2 guys, Cade and Beef Stew. Beef Stew showing the switching ability on defense. I believe his shot will come around to be good enough and that he has all these supplementary skills on defense to ferocious rebounder, really good team leader and defender and energy guy to at least be like 6th, 7th man off the bench, first big off the bench. I believe
Stu, right?
Yeah, Beef Stew for sure.
I meant to say Stu. I don't know why I didn't say him. I said him earlier. I meant to say Isaiah Stewart. Thank you for saying that, bro.
And then Cade, obviously, Cade is the leader, the maestro, as I like to call him. He just plays everybody like a string, right? Plays at his own pace, is smooth. You can't shake him. You can't get under his skin. He's going to do what he wants. He buys into it on both ends of the court. He's a very smart defender, communicates and gets everybody lined up. After that, it gets hard for me to say. Again, Ivy's defense is so bad, it's hard to say like contender level. We've seen already with teams like Atlanta with Trae Young, where you can't hide that guy, right? If Ivy remains that bad, you can't hide that guy. It's going to be impossible to consistently be good and not just have Giannis run you over when you get switched onto him, or even Chris Middleton, or even Drew Holiday. You're just going to get hunted with that one guy. And then Jalen Duren, I believe in Jalen Duren for sure, but I think it would take me one more season to like definitively say, if I'm betting like okay money, then yeah, I would say, okay, we can have Duren in there as well. But yeah, for sure, Cade and Stu and everybody else, I think is just TBD or NA. We don't have enough info quite yet.
It's going to be interesting, man. Do you believe that they're going to get this off season right?
I don't know, man. It could go so many different ways. It's hard to say. My hope is that they get a couple different guys that fill out the roles. I mean, stop me if you've heard this joke before. The Pistons have cap space. They're going into an off season with a mediocre free agent class.
Stop telling people they're about to sign Charlie V and Ben Gordon again, bro. Stop.
I'm just saying there's the possibility because, again, if you look at the free agent class, it's not top level. And we ain't signing Kyrie. We ain't signing Chris Middleton at that level, right? So there is the possibility of like Dylan Brooks for $28 million, which would be terrible. Kuzma, I'm not opposed to, but I don't know that Kuzma is a small forward or would want to play small forward. That would just be the only thing. And the Wizards have like made every indication that they're just going to throw a big money contract at him. So I definitely don't want to get in a bidding war for Kyle Kuzma in that regard. I think there are a lot of nice supplementary pieces like a Lonnie Walker, like a Cam Johnson, like a Yuta Watanabe, like a Javon Carter, all these guys that they could sign for above level deals of what they probably get. Like if you look at DeAnthony Melton, who plays for the Sixers, like Javon Carter is very similar to him, super feisty defensive guard, is a better shooter than DeAnthony Melton, has helped the Bucks really take another level defensively, would be a point of attack defender. And DeAnthony Melton's making like $8 million, and the Bucks don't have like any rights on Javon Carter. Yeah. So if you paid him like $8 to $10 million, something like that, to where you have a guy that shoots over 40% from three, who is a great point of attack defender, I think those kinds of deals. And then Lonnie Walker, again, somebody who's shot very well from three, is a wing. He's a little bit undersized, but another guy that you could pay like, I don't know, 12, 15 million there. These small little moves that will fill out the holes. And I really don't think they need to throw big money at one guy to try and be like another shot creator. I think we all believe Cade is that guy, right? We all believe Duren can take another step. We all believe Ivy's at least free throw ability, and his shooting has been fine. He's been shooting something like 36% since the start of the new year, which is a great sign that he's getting better as it goes along. What you need are guys that can play defense in the middle and be efficient. So that would be my hope.
Yeah. I mean, that's the truth, man. That's the truth. And I like that, man. I like that. I do want to start getting into some free agency stuff as well, in some future episodes and some future content that I know we're going to get going, because I think that is that's the landscape to really look at. We know that the Pistons are going to land with a high draft pick. We know the types of players that are going to be around for that, but the free agency is where they're going to make or break, and it's going to be an interesting one, man. Oh, as well as the potential candidates they could trade for. You know, we've known that that's something they've done with Bojan, with Jeremy Grant. Their two last high-paid players were by way of trade. So it's gonna be an interesting thing. But look, I appreciate you all for being here. I appreciate Jeff, Steve. Shout out to Rod. We just got done recording with him. The pod will be out at 1. And he was going in. I was going in. Look, yo, I lost my cool. I was done with this FanDuel redraft with Cade at 3. Listen, you can make your arguments. I told people you want to argue over Cade and Evan Mobley. I'm going to pick Cade. Yeah, got my guy. But listen, Evan Mobley, there's an argument to be made. But Franz over Cade?
I mean, these are people that look at box scores, right? And speaking as our resident U of M Michigan alumni,
say it. Go blue, Steve. Yeah.
Go blue. Franz is not. No. I wouldn't even put Franz over Scotty, to be honest. But that's a conversation for another day.
Wow.
He should be top 5, but yeah, not over Cade, not over Mobley, not over Scotty.
Nah, not at all. And look, next time we get on, I'm gonna be able to do that redraft with you. Actually, I want to redraft that draft. What was it? 2021?
Yeah, 2021.
Yeah, I want to do that with you. Rod and I, we did that earlier. I want your take on it. I think it's going to be interesting. But hey, look, y'all, we're going to shut it down. We're going to shut it down on Woodward Sports, man. We got the other shows that are going live already. And I want to make sure we're respectful to that. So definitely hop on over to the Woodward Sports Man channel. Check them out. And Steve, let the people know, as always, where they can check out your content as well.
Yeah, so follow me on Twitter and Instagram at ResBallPod. You can follow the podcast. Just search ResBall, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you can get them. Also have a Substack, resball.substack.com. I was personally disappointed in the trade deadline, so I did write up a 2-piece part of it. But also taking into account, I think Troy Weaver really was handcuffed by what all else happened, and probably he ended up being Plan B or Plan C with the other teams that traded. So go to check those out, please.
Hey, bro, bring one of those to the table talk, man.
Yeah, you got it.
Let's get into it, bro. Let's get into it. But let me see here. Chuck, man, shout out Chuck Brewer, man. I love Chuck, one of the regulars. It's a lot of regulars that I'm seeing in here, and I love it. We have a lot going on, a lot coming up, and we're gonna do our meetup. Next year, we're gonna do a lot more meetups, but we're gonna do a meetup. We're gonna do a live get together, have one of these shows with you all in the background at the Imagine Theater. The date will be released at a later time, but I want as many people here as possible. We're even going to try and fly Steve in. We are going to get Sean Murphy in town as well. I know he's on some other ventures, but we're going to get the whole gang together, the whole crew. I will reach out to some other people as well. Some of the people who helped us start the table talks, as well as Rob Beard, who started the Woodward Pistons podcast with me. So I appreciate all of the support, the cast, the crew, everybody else who puts in a lot of work here, man. Yo, they man, yo, listen, we appreciate it. It's something that we do from our heart, and it's something that we love to do because you all are here with us. So I'm looking for this to really be a party. This is not, us trying to do anything to get views or this or that. It's to just party with the people that every time we go live, we love looking forward to. And to realistically make sure that my guys, Steve, Jeff, among others, man, who have just put in a lot of work, a lot of hard work, can make sure they can get theirs, man. So I salute you guys. Thank you all a lot. Steve, any last words?
That's it, man. Trying to get Joe to talk one of these live table talks, but he's always on the phone. I don't know.
Hey, man, listen, man. He's trying to get these. He felt your disappointment with this year's trade deadline. That's all. And he's trying to make sure that he can make things right for you, Steve.
Yeah, I'm on the office with the league saying, "Come on, get Detroit some extra cap space."
Yeah, yeah. Hey, Sean must have heard his name, bro. Sean must have heard his name. We were just talking about you, brother. Love you, Sean.
What up, Sean?
Brother? And hopefully we can get maybe either a pregame or a postgame table talk in tomorrow night. We got to get crazy, brother. We got to get crazy. But yes, sir. This was awesome. This was fun, and we're gonna
shout out RJ Hampton. I know he posted a bunch of stuff on Twitter, being excited to be in Detroit. So we're excited to have you, man.
Hey, that's dope. That's dope, man. I'm ready to see what RJ Hampton is gonna bring to the table. I really am. But look, y'all. For the Woodward Pistons platform, my name is Brandon Dent, aka Detroit Kool-Aid. Thank you for rocking out with us. Thank you. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe, share it, whatever you got to do. Definitely get the word out there, and let's try and make this party that we're gonna have. Probably maybe around draft lottery time. We'll see. Or maybe around draft time. We will see. But this is going to be the best Pistons party that you're going to want to be at. And it's going to be one where we're hoping to give back to the fans. There will be some rare access passes that are going to be up to be given away. And stay tuned to the channel. Stay tuned to Twitter as well. We will be having some giveaways to make sure that the most dedicated fans can be included in this new rare access launch with the Pistons to give you much greater access to the team that you love and you support. So love you guys, man. For real. I appreciate it. Rod and I just did Woodward Pistons podcast episode 50 today. So I'm ecstatic, man. Like Darren McCarty came in here earlier just to say what's up. He was one of the first people to greet me at Woodward Sports. And so for him to kind of be in here and just talk with me and tell me the vision that he sees and the growth that he's seen, it's been awesome. So just definitely, man. I just wanted to make sure I shared that from the heart, and can't wait to talk to you guys again next time. Hey, as always, have your water. Have your water. Till next time, y'all.